Hello and welcome to the Nexus. The year is almost over, and today we're looking back at three of our most popular stories from 2024. Coming up on the program then,
it doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
The death of OJ Simpson. We asked his lawyer if he privately confessed to killing his ex-wife and her friend.
He was so adamant that he was totally innocent of the homicides. And he has a very strong ego. He's a great guy. He's a very nice man. But he's got a very strong ego, and I think he felt like he needed to prove something.
Also on the program, relentless scandals at Boeing.
Boeing's crisis is deepening. The airline manufacturer is suffering yet another mid-air incident.
A terrifying situation unfolding in the sky. A portion of the plane blew off in mid-flight.
Panels flying off planes, government investigations, and the latest, a whistleblower found dead.
Airline pilot Dennis Tajer tells us why passengers should be worried.
The level of contempt, you now have like a mafia-style group of folks that are out there in the ranks who think this is the way you run business.
But first, one of the most tragic and unique stories of the year. The sinking of the $40 million super yacht, the Bayesian, which left 7 people dead, including the British tech entrepreneur Mike Lynch and his young daughter, Hannah.
This is the final footage of the Bayesian moored at a harbour near Porticello in Sicily. It was just 300 metres from the shore when it sank during an intense storm. And these pictures of the wind sweeping through the city at the same time show just how severe the weather was. The Bayesian belonged to Mike Lynch, one of the UK's top tech entrepreneurs, sometimes called Britain's Bill Gates. His impressive yacht featured a 72-metre aluminium mast, the tallest of its kind in the world, an award-winning exterior design. On board were his family, friends and colleagues celebrating his acquittal after a 13-year legal battle in the US. Lynch had just been cleared on 15 fraud charges related to allegations that he inflated the value of his company, Autonomy, before selling it to Hewlett-Packard in 2011 for up to $11.7 billion. He could have faced over 20 years in prison if found guilty. But on August 19 at around 4 a.m. local time, his yacht sank in minutes during that powerful storm. Most passengers and crew were believed to still be in their cabins. It was 15 minutes after it went under before eyewitnesses saw a red flare in the sky. Rescuers soon found a life raft carrying survivors.
They went flat on the water, and then down.
At that time, 15 people were rescued, while the yacht's chef was found dead, floating in the water. Divers immediately began to search the wreck for the missing, but the depth and the fact the cabins were blocked by furniture for 5 days delayed the recovery of the bodies of Lynch's 18-year-old daughter Hannah, Morgan Stanley chairman Jonathan Bloomer and his wife Judy, and Lynch's lawyer Chris Morvillo and his wife Neda. The bodies were all found in the left side cabins, where they were likely trying to escape the water and find air pockets. 5 were in one cabin and Hannah Lynch was found on her own in another. A week after the sinking, investigators concluded the yacht had gone down stern first, where the heavy engine was, leaving the wreck lying on its right side, 50 metres down in the Porticello Bay. There are 3 different theories about the cause of the sinking. The retractable keel was in the wrong position, meaning the boat may not have been as stable in the water, that the wind pushed over the huge mast, or hatches were left open, letting water in. There is talk of a water spout, a type of tornado on the sea, slamming into the yacht, which would be a natural, if rare, weather event. But online commentators question the timing of the accident because of what appears a strange coincidence. Lynch's co-defendant in the years-long fraud case, Stephen Chamberlain, was hit by a car in the UK 2 days before the Bayesian disaster and died from his injuries on the same day the yacht went under.
Both people involved in this case have died within 2 days, including other people involved and his legal team, in 2 days. The odds of this are astounding.
UK police insist there are no links between the 2 incidents and don't plan an investigation in Italy. With echoes of the Titanic, the builders of the Bayesian deemed it unsinkable and one of the designers said the vessel was built to go to sea in any weather. And weather experts say the storm was clearly on its way and should not have been a surprise.
La perturbazione dalle carte meteorologiche che tutti potevano leggere, l'evento era assolutamente leggibile ed atteso.
But others insist that extreme conditions can lead to unexpected outcomes.
It's not unusual for vessels to sink because of very bad weather conditions.
The search for who or what is to blame has just begun. Italian police are investigating possible manslaughter centred on the captain and other members of the crew and have ruled nothing out.
Well, we spoke to Skip Novak, a sailor with decades of experience at sea, and he told us how the captain's decisions may have been influenced by having ultra-wealthy passengers on board.
Well, I mean, the captain's responsible for the vessel and everything that it does, and the manner and how they set it up and the protocols and everything. So, yeah, yet to be determined until all this inquiry comes out about what the state of play was at the time when this, extraordinarily weather incident happened. Was there a deck watch? All the things that have been asked in the news lately. Was there a deck watch? Was the keel up or down? Were the guests informed of this weather event coming, etc.? But one thing I can tell you is that, on a super yacht like that, for a captain to have to wake up the guest contingent at 4 o'clock in the morning and ask them to go to the muster station, these wealthy people on these boats, that's a big ask. He would have to have seen a complete crisis coming, in weather. And, this type of thing just doesn't happen in the Mediterranean. Yes, you get squalls coming across the boat, but that happens all the time. Boats are at anchor all over the place and a squall comes and goes across the deck and nobody gets woken up for that type of thing. So, to give him his due, I'm not sure what they saw on the radar, and if this weather event was so extraordinary that nobody could have predicted that this thing would lay the boat over on its side, if that's in fact what happened, what appears to be the case.
Turning now to our second story, the crisis at Boeing, the men trying to warn the public and the whistleblowers who mysteriously ended up dead.
This is not a 737 problem, it's a Boeing problem. Back in 2012, Boeing started removing inspection operations off their jobs, so it left the mechanics to buy off their own work.
We are learning this morning that a former employee turned whistleblower was found dead.
Barnett retired from Boeing in 2017 after working as a quality manager for more than 30 years. Since his departure, he has taken legal action against the company, claiming he was retaliated against for raising safety issues internally.
From day one, it's just all been about schedule and hurry up and just get it done, push the planes out. We're behind schedule. We don't have time to worry about issues that y'all bring up.
Barnett was found dead in his truck from what the coroner says was an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Do you believe this was a suicide?
The investigation is going on right now, and we're not going to go to that. We're going to wait and see what the investigation brings out.
A close family friend of Barnett says he predicted he might wind up dead, that a story could surface that he killed himself, but he told her, don't believe it.
I know that he did not commit suicide. There's no way.
It's happened again. Joshua Dean, a former quality auditor who sounded the alarm about a supplier who'd been ignoring defects in the production of Boeing's 737 MAX jets, is dead.
Joshua Dean died earlier this week after multiple diagnoses, including the flu, pneumonia, and MRSA.
Dean was a former quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems. He was one of the first whistleblowers to accuse Spirit leadership of ignoring manufacturing defects on 737 MAX planes.
Spirit Aerosystems reportedly manufactured the door that blew out on the Alaska Airlines flight, 16,000 feet in the air.
We own our supply chain, we own Spirit, we own the results of our work.
Dean eventually got canned for pointing out that there was a bunch of holes drilled into planes
where holes shouldn't be drilled. Dean was let go from what he called an act of retaliation.
In an interview, he said, "I think they were sending out a message to anybody else. If you are too loud, we will silence you."
The optics here, let's face it, are not good. We've had 4 whistleblowers come forward that we know of, 2 of which have now passed away.
Dean was represented by the same law firm that represented Boeing whistleblower John Mitch Barnett.
Joshua Dean and John Barnett's attorney Brian Knowles described the two men as heroes who wanted to help the company do better.
Bombshell claims from a new Boeing whistleblower, the employee saying engineering issues could cause some Boeing planes to break apart.
I'm not here today because I want to be here. I'm here today because I felt that I must come forward. I have serious concerns about the safety of the 787 and 777 aircraft. I literally saw people jumping on the pieces of the airplane to get them to align. I call it the Tarzan effect, among other improper methods. Again, I raised concerns internally. I was sidelined. I was told to shut up. I received physical threats. My boss said I would have killed someone who said what you said in a meeting.
You described your life was being threatened. Do you feel that this style of retaliation against you has been part of Boeing's efforts to silence and prevent you from sharing your story?
And they call you on your personal phone to let you know that they know where you live, they know where you are, and they can hurt you. It really scares me, believe me. But I am at peace. You know, if something happens to me, I am at peace.
Well, Dennis Tajer is a very experienced airline pilot who says he's had many troubling moments flying the Boeing 737 MAX.
This is right out of the playbook of Boeing. Up until just recent days, whenever somebody comes up and sees something not going well and says something, they're treated with a level of contempt, intimidation, threat, or actual retribution. We've seen this isolation where suddenly that professional, that hero, and that term has been used. It's actually an understatement because these men have put their well-being before others to keep passengers safe. So we've seen Boeing, it's this cultural problem that if you speak up, you will likely be put on the sidelines, and they won't stop there. This level of contempt for the actual people who fly the airplanes, pilots, who we saw during the 2 crashes of the MAXs about 5 years ago, just continue throughout the organization. This is a couple decades in the making, and this culture isn't going to change overnight.
Sean Pritchnicki, you were with Sam Salahpour when he was making and giving that emotional testimony. We ended that report with him saying, "If something happens to me, I am at peace." He sounds like he's under incredible pressure at Boeing.
He most certainly is. I mean, this is an environment. This is a very hostile environment that he's working in, and the things that he's been told, the things that he's seeing going on around him, I certainly can understand why he would make a comment like that. The things that we heard in his testimony, I could see why he would make this comment, and he is very much afraid. And it's a shame that he has to work in that type of environment. And these types of folks that come forward, and I think Sam is certainly a hero. The guts that it takes to come forward and do this, and I certainly applaud him and the others that have done this.
Does he genuinely fear for his life?
I believe he does. The things that he said in that Senate hearing, I had not seen his transcript prior to that. And when I was sitting up there with him, I was, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say alarmed. I was alarmed with what I heard him say and talking with him afterwards. And I believe he does feel that way, which goes together with what you had just said, that his comments about being at peace. And I think there are others that feel that way as well, and for good reasons, for the things that they've heard.
And now our final story, the death of OJ Simpson, the former American football hero acquitted of murdering his ex-wife and her friend in one of the biggest televised trials in history.
OJ Simpson in a knit cap from 2 blocks away is still OJ Simpson. It's no disguise. It's no disguise. It makes no sense. It doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. You must acquit.
In a trial full of dramatic moments, that one is surely one of the most memorable. OJ's defense attorney, Johnny Cochran, raising doubt in the minds of the jury. Their verdict, which was watched by 150 million Americans, stunned the nation.
Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Many couldn't believe it. They had watched the trial on TV and saw prosecutors present forensic evidence that O.J. Simpson had murdered Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman.
The mere fact that we find blood where there should be no blood, in the defendant's car, in his house, in the driveway, and even on the socks in his very bedroom, at the foot of his bed, that trail of blood from Bundy through his own Ford Bronco and into his house in Rockingham is devastating proof of his guilt.
Prosecutors had also played a harrowing recording of OJ's ex-wife calling the police a couple of years prior.
What does he look like? He's OJ Simpson. I think you know his record. Could you just send somebody over here? You're going to hear him in a minute. He's about to come in again. Okay, just stay on the line. I don't want to stay on the line. He's going to beat the Wait a minute.
The officer who responded to the emergency call testified that OJ had beaten her, and the jury was shown photographic evidence.
A woman came running out of the bushes to my left, crossed the driveway, and started yelling, "He's going to kill me, he's going to kill me."
The prosecution then believed they had a compelling case, but they were going up against OJ's defense team, which was one of the best that money could buy. Led by Robert Shapiro, it comprised Robert Kardashian, Alan Dershowitz, Johnny Cochran, and Robert Blazier. The press dubbed them the Dream Team, and in the so-called trial of the century, they outgunned the prosecution. In one of the longest trials in Californian history, lasting 11 months, the defense steadily chipped away at the prosecution's case, starting with the DNA evidence, which they argued had been tampered with and was not reliable.
The fact that blood mysteriously appears on vital pieces of evidence, and it's predicted what the results will be regarding DNA when that evidence is still in the police lab, is devastating evidence of something far more sinister.
They also argued that Detective Mark Furman, who found the bloody glove at O.J. Simpson's house, had planted it there because he was a racist. Witnesses for the defense testified he'd used the N-word many times in the past. Furman lied in court and denied it.
Do you use the word in describing people?
No, sir.
The defense later presented audio tapes of Furman using the N-word many times a few years before the trial. His credibility was shot. They also successfully portrayed the LA police as systemically racist, and some jurors were ready to believe this given the recent events. There had been race riots in the city just 2 years earlier, in 1992, after the policemen who were filmed beating Rodney King were cleared by a court of using excessive force. In the O.J. Simpson trial, the vast majority of jurors were black, and at the time they said they'd reached a not guilty verdict because the prosecution's case was weak. But years later, at least one juror admitted race had played a part.
Do you think that there are members of the jury that voted to acquit OJ because of Rodney King?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
How many of you think felt that way?
Oh, probably 90% of them.
That was payback.
Uh-huh.
You think that's right?
The racial divide was abundantly clear on the Oprah Winfrey Show, as her studio audience watched live as the OJ verdict came in.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation.
Black women overwhelmingly cheered. White women were horrified. A couple of black women in the audience did feel the same way. A survey at the time revealed this racial divide was real. After Simpson was acquitted, 69% of white Americans said they believed he was probably or definitely guilty. Just 16% of black Americans felt the same way. In his first interview after the not guilty verdict, O.J. Simpson was confronted with a simple fact.
The truth is that in the minds of millions of people around the world, you killed Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. They believe that. That's their perception. And because you had a lot of money and you had some innovative lawyers, you're going to get away with it. Can you live with that public perception in the minds of some people?
Well, I don't think doing this tape is going to change a lot of minds. Basically, I think the people who have had faith in me and believed in me, hopefully I'll justify that.
Thanks. I'm Norm Macdonald, and this is the Fake News.
America's top satirist at the time, Norm Macdonald, ridiculed Simpson's protestations of innocence and was eventually fired from Saturday Night Live for making jokes like this.
In his book, OJ Simpson says that he would have taken a bullet or stood in front of a train for Nicole. Man, I'm going to tell you, that is some bad luck when the one guy who would have died for you kills you. That's probably...
A year after the murder trial, OJ Simpson was on trial again in a civil case brought by Nicole and Ron's families. This time he was found liable for their deaths and ordered to pay $33 million in compensation and damages.
We finally have justice for Ron and Nicole.
A decade later, OJ Simpson and his ghostwriter published If I Did It, a supposedly hypothetical account of the murders, but no confession. He filmed an interview to boost sales.
And it concerns the murders of my ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her young friend, Ronald Goldman.
OJ stood to make a lot of money from the book, but a court stepped in, awarding the book rights to the Goldman family, in part to satisfy the ruling in the civil case. In 2008, exactly 13 years to the day after his acquittal, OJ Simpson was found guilty of robbing a casino in an attempt to get back his old trophies. He spent the next 9 years in prison and was released a worn-out 70-year-old. OJ spent the last 7 years of his life a free man, but in relative obscurity. He released this final video message back in February.
Hey, X-World, it's me, yours truly. Boy, what a beautiful day it is. My health is good. I mean, obviously I'm dealing with some issues, but hey, I think I'm just about over it, and I'll be back on that golf course, hopefully in a couple of weeks.
OJ Simpson died from his prostate cancer just 2 months later, apparently surrounded by all his children and grandchildren.
Hospice? You talking about hospice? No, I'm not in any hospital. I don't know who put that out there, but whoever put that out there, I guess is like the Donald say, can't trust the media.
Well, we spoke to OJ Simpson's murder trial lawyer, Robert Blazier, about how his team won the case.
There were many factors that played into it. I mean, my responsibility was with all the forensic evidence, and I think we were able to raise reasonable doubt about that. But you've also got the issues with the gloves and Mark Furman's racism, and you know, that combined all together to lead to the jury verdict. And I think a lot of it is also due to the way Marcia Clark picked the jury. The case was held in Los Angeles rather than Santa Monica, where the actual crimes were committed. And we wound up with a very positive jury for our side. I mean, all of these factors mixed together resulted in a very quick verdict, an unusually quick verdict in the case.
If the prosecutor had been more competent, at the top of their game, as your defense team was, is it likely that OJ Simpson would have been found guilty and spent the rest of his life in prison?
I think that was a strong likelihood, quite frankly. If the case had been tried in Santa Monica, I think he would have been found guilty. There was just a lot of forensic evidence, and we did our best to try to cast doubt on a lot of that, and we were able to do that in Los Angeles. But had it been Santa Monica, I don't think we would have been able to do it.
And it was the prosecution's choice to not try him in Santa Monica, which is a much more white area, which would have meant that the jury would have been much whiter and he would have gone down. Why would they choose that? Why would they make that decision? It seems crazy.
Well, according to them anyway, they felt that because of security concerns, they knew this was going to be a huge trial. And because of security concerns, they wanted it downtown where they could kind of stay close to the central part of the town rather than going out to Santa Monica. I think that was a mistake, quite frankly. I mean, when we did the civil case, we did it in Santa Monica, which was a big mistake for us.
Well, because he was found unanimously to be liable for their deaths in that case. We'll come to that a little later, but let's go back to the prosecutor, Marcia Clark. So not only did she decide for the prosecution, the trial to happen downtown LA, where there would be a much more greater chance of having a black jury, not only that, she actually expressed a preference for black women to be on the jury. Again, why?
That's my understanding. I think she did a totally miscalculation in terms of the racial issue, and I've learned. I never talked to her about it, but I've learned that she wanted to have elderly black women on the jury because she thought that would be more sympathetic to the victims. It turned out to be a huge mistake, and you just can't ignore the racial component of the case. It's there. It's not something that we raised. It's just there.
Well, they are three of our biggest stories of last year. Hope you enjoyed them. You can see the full episodes, if you liked, by going online. Go to YouTube and just type in Nexus TRT World. And we've got plenty more planned for the year ahead. We'll tell you about that next week. Till then, goodbye.